Eastern European Jewish name. He changed his name when he became a UK citizen.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so common.
Common
in this class of.
Well, it's Sumner Redstone, same thing. It's Murray Rothstein. Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Well, just Google, where in the world is Ghislaine Maxwell?
Where in the world is...
And what does that mean? I mean, y'all should look into that.
No, well, I mean, she could be in other places. I mean, there was an Israeli newspaper that said she was in Israel for a while, and there's someone trying to track her on Twitter. Says that she's probably on Les Wexner's yacht. I mean, the Limitless.
With balloons. Think about balloons. Yep. You could have a whole. You could float essentially a hotel.
Absolutely.
You know, you could float a hotel.
You absolutely could.
These are just the toys that NASA are fucking with. I mean, give me a break. Underground bases, castles, dungeons. I mean.
Tunnels underground. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. So, going.
It's wild. It's true. Truth, strangers, and fiction.
So, who's gonna burn? I mean, Trump has
1 out of every 2 or 3 people, from all of politics to celebrity, is implicated in this.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Hollywood by itself, I mean, it's got to be.
Let me ask you, what do you make of Trump's, years ago tweet about got to get these perverts fast trial, quick judgment, assassinate or execution? There have been cross-state efforts to sort of, I've seen, multiple child sex. There's this whole thing about Craigslist and cracking down on sex work.
Right.
There have been some prosecutions and so on that have happened, but it seems pretty low level, like, child porn, traffickers, aggregators, that sort of thing. Distributors.
Isaac Asimov's son, by the way.
I saw that. Yeah.
That was huge.
But check this out. Like, New York Times columnist Paul Krugman says hacker compromised his IP address to download child pornography. To me, this seems like a preemptive, like maybe he's guilty and he's getting ahead of it in the media. I don't know. I don't have any evidence of anything, but I wonder.
It wouldn't surprise me in the least. Someone else compromised his IP. Maybe. It's plausible deniability.
But there are reports of like the SEC. A lot of the employees of the SEC just like sitting around watching porn and or some of them being guilty of having it, child porn.
Sure.
But then you also have the surveillance grid and the capability for stuff to be planted and faked. So I don't have evidence one way or the other. It could definitely have been compromised if there's like some hijinks going on.
Sure.
But that could happen to anybody, but
I personally think that these distributor networks and, people with these, tucked away little studios and, digital, I really do think that it is possible that many of these academics and kind of uppity ups, up and coming social climbers, that's like part of their initiation into
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
But also for people like you and me, right? Like it would be very easy for an operative to plant something in this operation and take it down in a day.
It's
so well,
and that's the whole like false.
But so then I see a report like this, and I'm like, Paul Krugman. Why Paul Krugman? Why would this be in the news now?
Yeah,
like this seems too weird.
Right.
Too weird.
Well, okay.
Especially
now,
meant to be fair. Yeah.
Paul Krugman is a pretty staunch critic of Trump, and Trump has had some seedy connections with people who could very well have been involved in this kind of operation. So it's possible that they're trying to leverage and extort way behind the scenes in a clandestine manner to intimidate critics and things. So that's from sort of the other angle, but we're not true.
We ant workers,
yeah.
How the information that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and all these other people have to leverage against each other. We know that the blackmail is happening.
Yeah,
but we don't know
the extent.
We're not watching an episode of House of Cards that is actually depicting all this. We can only speculate, and that's why I see something like this come across on the headlines, and I'm just like, what the fuck is behind? I know it's not what Fox News is telling me.
Right. That's a surface level informational reporting. Yeah. But ultimately, it does show that there are extortion networks.
Totally.
And there are distributor cells that do disseminate this snuff material.
Yeah.
It's used as a
currency.
It's a
weapon
currency
and a currency.
Yes, it's a currency.
Well, the weapons are currency,
right?
In this war,
that's right.
Essentially.
Definitely.
So I want to take a quick break.
Yep.
All right, we're back. And we're on number 14, Internet Censorship Gate. How will humanity respond? And, I mean, only time's going to tell, right? But at CNN, we're grappling with this very issue. And it's complicated, right? Because there are a lot of conveniences afforded by the major platforms to deliver this content to you who want to listen to it. But with it comes a price. It's not free. That's the misconception.
You are the product.
You are the product. You pay for it with your data. And if you're willing to pay for it, you have to be willing to be controlled. And, YouTube on December 10th announced a policy change, which was, we're going to just shut down any account that isn't commercially viable, according to us, So they're actually, in some ways, they're taking a loss just for the sake of preventing this sort of speech from proliferating that they, for whatever reason, that's another debate, are aligned against. And the other thing that's interesting is the ICANN organization, the internet company for, I forget the exact acronym, but they govern the domain naming system, the .com, the .net, the .biz, the .this, the .that. They govern it globally. That was handed over from a U.S. non-NGO to the United Nations.
Oh, great.
Years ago, and that's sort of metastasizing, and is gonna start. I think the effects of that are going to manifest in the market, and it's not going to be good. Because whenever you create a domain, we have to create Zetetic.news. We have to register. We have to provide our name and address information, and how they govern the ability of an individual to register a domain name, which is really just a electronic location for information, is going to be real interesting in the whole internet censorship landscape going forward. So how people are going to react to that is going to be real interesting. And I think cryptocurrency really plays a big role in that as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, unfortunately right now they're so front and center and so ensconced in people's day-to-day lives, and the user base itself really puts them on the level of public utilities. And I think that ultimately they are the commons. So why don't we just totally decorporatize the entire basis for people being able to engage in the digital commons and, get this whole, double benefit without this responsibility matrix that's at the front and center of these big tech corporations. I mean, they get to operate with impunity while still having this huge data mining capability, and and yet they're not compensating us for all of the mining that they're doing of our lives.
Right.
We're the ones who have to pay. I mean, it's really worse than a public utility in the sense that we're the ones who are the resource. A public utility would be like the water supply or, electrical grid or things like this, but we're the resource.
Right. Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, the end result really should be that if these big tech corporations are going to continue to exist, they have to find some way of not becoming, one, obsolete to these more decentralized forms of interaction on the web, and two, they've got to find a way to incentivize people to still put up with their lack of cybersecurity, all the data that's hacked and leaked all over the world. I mean, just the other day, some hacker was able to get all kinds of data from Facebook users again.
Right.
And it's like, and it's all sold all over the...
Now Facebook wants you to put a device called Portal in your home.
That's absurd.
Yeah, I mean, it's
absurd.
It's really endless. And I think solutions will arise to help people encrypt and monetize their own data generation just from surfing the web. You already see some of that with like BitTube and
Brave browser, that kind of thing. I mean, ultimately, if the Fed can just print money and inject it into select banks and corporate accounts digitally, everyone should be able to just print their own money. Right. Off of what they do.
Why not?
Internet.
I mean,
why not?
If you will accept if I decide to print out a couple of Corey bucks,
right,
and print them out and cut them out, and you accept that for a service, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
You accept it as legal tender. Why does the third party have to come in and tell me I can't do that?
Yeah. Only people who are afraid that their monopoly is going to crumble.
Exactly.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
I mean, the Fed is really the original anti-competition bureaucracy to a great extent.
Right.
Because their entire existence has been around stifling real productive competition, collaboration,
and that's a huge
cooperation in the economy
huge
amongst the
2020
populace.
singularity.
Huge.
Is the battle over the world reserve currency, the global collateral accounts, the unit of account for humanity going forward.
The derivatives. I mean, the debt bubbles that are based on zero credit legitimacy.
They've been kicking the can down the road. They've been skating on thin ice for decades. So internet censorship's going to persist. It's going to get worse before it's get better, in my opinion.
Unfortunately, I think that's the overall trend. So long as people don't look back and look at legal precedences and solid arguments for reining in the impunity of these tech corporations.
Yeah.
I mean,
just MySpace.
They need to be broken up, I think.
MySpace them.
Yeah.
Just abandon them.
Yeah.
You don't need them.
That is a good point. I think the main thing is that YouTube, for example, is exponentially bigger than something like a MySpace. Same with Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. So the sheer scope of just their market capitalization. I mean,
also the work involved with migrating.
Yeah.
Data migration is a big it's a big undertaking for anybody.
Hassle.
It's a huge hassle, and especially for people who've actually built a career out of being a YouTuber.
Right.
So they're
clinging on. They're the ones who are perpetuating that platform ultimately. Yeah,
the more they succumb to it,
the more they succumb and rely to it, they become defenders of the very thing that could just cut them loose.
That's why it's been interesting to see PewDiePie move to D.Live. 100%. He's off YouTube, I think, because of the censorship.
Is he really?
I believe so. And he's like one of the marquee users of D.Live, which hopefully will, catapult them to some sort of
Well, I think
leadership position.
I think that needs to happen more for sure. The more PewDiePie level users start migrating, the more YouTube is truly in trouble.
Yeah.
Because their revenue is going to plummet.
Right. What's interesting is it was always that was the problem for Google when they bought YouTube was figuring out how to monetize it.
That's right.
They did by democratizing video like they had initially planned to, but then it was like a bad drug dealer who's just like trying to get somebody addicted to crack and then take advantage of them.
Right. Because the reason why people like YouTube is that it wasn't riddled with corporatized ads all over the place.
And then that's how do you monetize it? That's what you do.
That's what you do is you just get big corporations.
There are other models.
There's other models, guys.
Yeah.
We
think outside the box.
Yeah, we're just so tired of these monopolies.
Yeah, so I think necessity is the mother of all invention, and this is a subject where the internet is sort of like a Pandora's box. It's already been opened. To a certain extent, they can try to clamp down.
Make it myopic, narrow
have
the flow.
Too many engineers who
too
are
many developers
and stuff who are like,
who are smart and can totally build around it.
Yeah, exactly. They're not that. They might be meek people socially, but they do not like to be told what to do.
Right.
My brother's an engineer, and even though he may not be like as strongly worded as I am, like you're not going to tell him what to do. Right. And especially if you tell him he can't do something like from an engineering perspective, that's what a hacker always was, is somebody who was like, oh, a system can be compromised. I'm going to try to compromise it. And hacker did have a positive connotation at one point. People trying to like sort of hack a system and then inform the user of the security vulnerability. And so like, a lot of that's going to go on. Inventions will take place that will nullify, any sort of top down, because at the end of the day, the authoritarians are not smart. They're only taking what someone else has invented and trying to use it for a malicious end. And
what's the whole Sun Tzu? Like, I feel like Sun Tzu Art of War should be a required reading for people, especially these days, because increasingly the contemporary modern day elites and the bureaucratic control grid that they've insulated themselves with is really based on one thing, and that is gaslighting people into submission. Yeah. Because if you really look at the population count, I mean, it's like pitting, a few dozen cockroaches versus, I mean, we're talking trillions of ants. Right. In terms of population. I mean,
I know, it's crazy, and it needs holograms.
Yeah, it needs this level, this high-tech level of illusion and black magic to insulate itself from completely being leveled.
That was one of my biggest revelations when I first rode on an airplane, was realizing how small I was and the people who I saw on TV. Right. It's like when you watch TV, you see these big heads. They seem so important, so monolithic. You get in an airplane, you see how small you are and the airplane is and your house that you live in compared to the plane of existence that you're on. Right. And those personalities really shrink small.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, they're not more important than anyone.
Right. Right. But they sit up there with their Don Lemon and talking about his opinion and shit. It's just like...
Yeah, it's like you're getting paid how much to produce mediocre content, and people who are light years smarter. I mean, it's garbage. Trash. It's just total rag shit. But people who are, levels of standards of deviation higher in intelligence, who are producing better content for, because it's emergency media based, basically. Right. It's volunteer because it has to be. And it just goes to show how morally, intellectually, and spiritually bankrupt the entire project has become. The macro project. The modernity
Speaking
project.
of, did you see the report about, I don't know how it came out, but how much CNN was paying to have their stuff in airports?
Oh, they have to pay now. Their ratings are really down. What I do think could happen from an economic standpoint when it comes to these big tech firms is they're like barracudas. You know, they're really intimidating, they're really sleek, they're really powerful. But if they're in the wrong water environment and they get cut, and there happens to be a whole bunch of piranhas nearby, that barracuda doesn't stand a chance. It will get completely piranhized. And I think that could happen to these tech giants. They've reigned for a long time. They might reign for another few years, but blood's in the water already.
Right.
You know, it's already shows that they're not secure. They leak people's data all the time.
Right.
They're run by these psychopath, you know, deranged elites that have no moral compass, have no interest in protecting people's privacy. And
they're hypocrites.
They're hypocrites. They're political operatives, a lot of them, and they got a lot of their seed money from dark money in the deep state. And who wants to put up with that anymore?
Nobody.
So,
and even Facebook is attaining the MySpace-esque status of, you know, only old people.
Right, only older people. The audience is getting older, and
which is funny because it started off as like a college type of app.
It's interesting how much it's drifted into bigger demographics, but that's not necessarily good for it. You know, just because your audience is expanding doesn't mean that you're creating a better product necessarily.
Right. No,
it means that
especially
could be diluting
when
your
you've
services.
got all these scandals about fake accounts.
Oh, like it's a social graveyard more than it's a network.
Talk about insider trading and stock manipulation. You know, like if your user count growth is tied in any way to your revenue potential and that impacts your stock price and you just fake that information, that's financial fraud.
Right.
And that's what's going on.
Oh yeah.
That happened at Facebook, that happens at Wells Fargo. I mean, give me a break. But moving on, I thought Chimera Gate.
Oh gosh.
It really was a subject of conversation for me personally through 2019. The subject of chimeras, because it's been in the news. You know, it's in the MIT Technology Review. It was recently reported that, you know, they're doing all this gene editing in China. They've given birth to like multiple clones.
Hybridization of cross-specialized genetic codes. Yeah. And
this ties into some other subjects like gender wars and the trans cybernetic apocalypse.
Right.
But there's also a little bit of comic relief here. I want to play this funny remix mashup of Alex Jones. Have you heard this?
Oh, featuring Ralph Northam. Yeah.
Yeah, Ralph Northam. When he was on the Joe Rogan.
Kind of like like a lip sync thing, or is it just like a editing?
It's a mashup from his Joe Rogan appearance.
Okay.
With a fat beat.
Cool.
Most name brand bars and body washes you rub on your skin are classified by the FDA as synthetic.
The chimeras are alien. Animal, human, pigs. Maybe she keep baby alive a week. Maybe she's trying to get rid of baby. Maybe she keep baby alive a week. Maybe she's trying to get rid of baby. We don't want the government involved, the doctors and the mother who drugged her. We don't want the government involved. You see how it works? It's a southern loving voice. They take the organs. It's a southern loving voice. And they take the blood. It's a southern loving voice. And they take the skin, Joe. It's a southern loving voice. You see how it works? Say 5 lives. They're killing our organs. Say 5 lives. So you're telling me it isn't real. Say 5 lives. And a goddamn 5 tried to get rid of baby. Maybe she keep baby alive a week. Maybe she's tried to get rid of baby. We don't want the government involved, the doctors and the mothers who drugged her. We don't want the government involved. You see how it works? We have to take higher and higher dosages to meet with them. They're giving us technology, and the technology works. Why do you think fraternities have you screw sheep and all this and give guys blowjobs? That's why they were joined them. That's why they were joined them. Animal, human, pigs. That's why they were joined them. Give guys blowjobs. That's why they were joined them. Screw sheep and all this.
Oh, fuck that.
Humanoid. These aren't humans. Humanoid. Give guys blowjobs. Humanoid. Screw sheep and all this. Humanoid. It's alien. Why are we wasting this? Humanoid. 7 pounds of meat. Humanoid. Why are we wasting 7 pounds of meat? That's why they were joined them. Comfortable.
So, I mean, obviously, kind of making fun of a very serious topic, but
Right.
but Alex has done a good job, I think, exposing the subject, and despite the memification of it,
Yes.
I mean, this is going on. This is Nazi level, Dr. Mengele.
Well, it's-
dark experimentation and
It's part of the
playing
deep,
God.
the deep misanthropy strain within elite psychology. That we have the privilege of treating human beings as resource test subject guinea pigs for our sick fantasy petri dish.
Goes to animals too. I mean, launching monkeys in rockets and
Right,
splicing them, giving birth to alien creatures,
right,
growing organs inside of other animals.
right.
You name it. You name it. You can't even name it. You can't even
Yeah.
imagine it.
Yeah, it's and again, it's another one of these black magic forays that scientism is just totally enamored with. They just love this tinkering and this meddling as the basis of their technique that must be worshipped.
Yeah.
It's powerful stuff.
So the question I ask is, when will aliens integrate with surface population in an unstigmatized way? I mean, when are we going to see the mainstream acceptance of
mutants,
things like
maybe, yeah.
clones and mutants
Yeah.
and hybrids and cyborgs?
Right.
I mean, that goes. I'm going to skip over deepfakes and identity virtualization because we sort of
Right.
already talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
I'm going to skip right up to gender wars and try in the trans cybernetic apocalypse.
Oh yeah,
which
dude.
ties right into Chimera Gate and organ harvesting, genetic creation and manipulation. And the question is, this is my opinion, but I mean, I think it's steering us towards an asexual
And
future.
androgyne,
Androgyne is a perfect, cyberdyne,
cyberdyne,
cybernetic existence, perhaps RoboCop and or
Yeah.
Idiocracy, sitting like Matrix-like in a pod or a recliner type device with the toilet, plugged in as
WALL-E.
a battery. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So, everybody knows gender identity politics are like hot right now, and
wow.
Dave Chappelle's not being allowed in local bars here in the area because of
Really? Did not realize that.
Pinhook. I didn't have time. I wanted to get a link here, but he was not allowed at Pinhook here locally.
Did he try to visit it?
Yes.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. Taylor.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
Did he end up going to
there were reports and tweets and stuff about it.
Wow,
As far as
I'll
I
have to
know.
look that
But
up.
like
That's
that's how
fascinating.
radical it's gotten is we're now, banning people for their opinion from public places of commerce.
it's worse than middle school.
It's really childish.
It's unbelievably
but
childish.
people are being such big babies, but it's a function of this push to transhumanism and transgenderism and
right,
and just gender confusion,
hyper emotivism.
Hyper emotivism.
Throw out
Everybody's offended
rationality.
about
Throw out empirical demonstrability of the problems with this whole paradigm, and what it would entail medically to try and normalize it. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
So, as an exemplification, I just got a couple examples of just the progression, the dramatic progression we've seen between just 2018 and 2019. I mean,
those are, that I feel like there was a big difference.
When I was in middle school, you could say faggot, and some people would be pissed off, but like, no big deal. Now it's like,
oh, it's a hate crime. You'd be put
it's a hate crime.
Jail.
You're gonna be expelled from school
for a 2-syllable utterance.
But now, if you don't even accept what I'm about to show you, you're the devil. So check this out. This is the future.
Gone viral. Vinny, 23 years of age, has already spent tens of thousands of dollars. Why? In hopes to transform into a genderless alien. And rather than try to explain this, we actually have Vinny joining us in our audience. And Vinny, I'm going to openly acknowledge when I read your story, there's some confusion. And your motivation, why you're doing this, and how far you've already gone and how far you wish to continue to go. Talk to us about your point in starting this and what your goal is.
Well, starting my journey to become kind of this genderless, sexless alien was brought about because in my communities, in the queer and gay community and the trans community, I found myself not really connecting to either, more into a gender non-binary.
So you want to be sexless?
Yeah, I've looked into removing my genitals completely with different doctors, like a sexual on assignment. No nipples. I looked into removing my belly button just to give it kind of more that sci-fi, sexy kind of like look. Also because these are body modifications that aren't commonly done, they aren't commonly practiced, and the more they're done, obviously the better we get out of them. So
they're not. I'm happy to report that people have said no to you, right?
Yeah, they scurry off and they get like a little scared and nervous.
I want to bring into discussion psychotherapist Mike Dow, because you're at the point now, Vinny, where you're looking overseas.
Yeah, even most SRS sexual reassignment procedures are done overseas just because it is cheaper and it's more commonly done in places such as Thailand.
Have the surgeons there done it? I know they may say they will do it for you, but have they done it for anyone else?
I haven't asked if they've really done it. I'm kind of going into this as it is a totally new thing, and there are complications that do go
This is
into it.
different. You go through gender assignment, reassignment. I mean, removing your Adam's apple, feminizing your face, or making it more masculine. Removing breasts, adding breasts, genitalia. But when you get into removing nipples and belly buttons, that's sort of
and trying to remove any genitalia at all, it's such a this is different.
It really
different, quote unquote.
I mean,
different. Is that really where we've gotten to? That we can't tell the difference between like psychotic abominationism and that's different. I mean, at the end of the day, there's some sort of social conditioning going on.
Yeah, why can't they be appalled? Why can't they be appalled? I bet. Right. I think this dude or lady, started out as one alien, was on Dr. Phil. I'm kind of interested in what Dr. Phil, because Dr. Phil kind of bless him out.
Bless his heart. He tries sometimes.
Yeah, I mean this is crazy, but look, this I think it's about getting a level of acceptance to body modification, right? Because there's going to be a spectrum to everything. This person's going to remove their belly button, their genitalia, their nipples, and everything, or be the first alien. Well, that's just on a spectrum. That's a little extreme, Like, I'll still get an implant. And that's really what... It's just like we're gonna push the Overton window so far,
big time,
that at least we can get the average person to accept taking a chip.
Right.
That's what I think the end game is.
I think you're spot on there.
I think that's gonna kind of sort of come to the fore in 2020.
I think so too.
Especially with the financial collapse, I think that's tied in with that.
And it's this Sodom and Gomorrah Babylonian distraction of like everything is falling apart around us. What kind of hyper emotivist fantasy world can we get ourselves involved in? Whether it's VR, whether it's cybernetics and brain chipping, whether it's, you know, all this.
Put an example out like that of such extremes to where, hey, taking a chip it's not, I'm not like that guy.
I'm not like that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm still a guy, you know?
Right. So, oh man.
But I'll go ahead and take a chip that has unknown biological effects and it has hooked up to 5G towers. And, you know, who knows? Maybe I have to swallow a pill every 4 months to keep it updated.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
So here's another one. And it's, you know, it's amazing, Xavier, is the number of local examples I can find of the insanity. That's why I think ZNN is in a unique geographic and temporal location to expose some of these things. So this is another, in terms of the gender wars, the transhumanist agenda, and the overall just victimization complex of that's being engendered. Check this crystal out.
Oh yeah.
I went blind on purpose, but I don't feel it was a choice.
For most people, going blind would be a nightmare, but for Jewel Chooping it was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. She suffers from a rare condition called body integrity identity disorder, which led her to deliberately take her own sight.
When there's nobody around you that feels the same way, you start to think that you're just very crazy. I don't think I'm crazy. I think I have a disorder. BIID means that you have a need to be disabled in some way. In my case, it was a need to go blind.
9 years ago, Jewel took the drastic decision to blind herself, and she researched the method she would use.
I found that lye is very painful, although it does get the job done. I found that drain cleaner is little less painful, although it does a lot of damage to the eye. Because drain cleaner was easily available to me, I went with that.
She found a psychologist willing to help her, and after 2 weeks of working together to make sure she was ready, they carried out Jewel's plan.
She found a psychologist who was willing to help her by blinding her with drain cleaner. Can you believe?
That is unreal. I mean,
this lady lives 40 minutes away, 30 minutes away in public housing on the public's dime. Now, as a disabled person, she qualifies for disability. A psychologist helped her. That man should be in jail.
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
Criminal assault.
Who is that guy?
It's criminal assault. It's maiming.
She is mentally ill, clearly.
Clearly.
And now she's physically disabled.
And guess what?
I'm pissed.
Yeah. That is beyond the pale. I mean, we're talking about.
But I'm supposed to celebrate that
as an identity
you are overcoming
disorder.
your BIID by manifesting the dysmorphic psychological state that you're in with a physical trauma, a real physical. I mean, what psychologist would say that is good psychology?
Someone who wants to contribute to the DSM-6 manual and say, I invented a new condition.
He's probably an academic.
Yeah.
Shit.
I'm sure he is.
Okay. God. Okay. That's enough.
Yeah. That's just a help.
All right.
It's a help.
We're getting close to the end here. U.S. civil global war going hot. We haven't really talked about.
Virginia is really wow. I mean, all the stuff going on in Virginia with the gun confiscation, Ralph.
With Virginia and Maryland sort of housing the belly of the beast, the CIA,
Seems like it.
Washington, right?
Yeah.
They're all. I think it's just a beta test, because like CNN had reported on the proposed sound ordinance in Orange County, which I think is just an extension of this.
It absolutely is.
National program to
Absolutely.
to confiscate the guns. So
100%.
I have to say InfoWars did a pretty good mashup, revealing that the Democrats just admit that
Sure.
that they're after the guns.
Well, but the thing is, again, it's this Overton window thing where so much of the population is so domesticated and has no relation to a gun, and they've done this amazing social engineering feat of replacing people's natural ability to have a natural defense tool like a gun carried around on their hip all the time with phones.
Right.
So they've replaced the natural progression of a truly individually free society, which would be to have an armed society.
Well, you can shoot them with video.
Right. Right.
You can upload it to the cloud real quick, and then
be
depending on
censored.
what happens on the video, we might delete it.
We'll just might delete it.
It'll be sent to the Ministry of Truth.
Right.
In Orwell's 1984, aka 2020.
Right. Seriously, I mean, at this point, they're just openly admitting it and
but
saying,
just look how rabid.
you don't need. It's this paternalistic managerialism over the entire population that says, we know what's better for you than you could possibly imagine. So just listen to us, shut up, and give us your.
That's what's so stunning about the current political season and the current political atmosphere we're in. I mean, InfoWars didn't have to work that hard to put this compilation together because it's just it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
So
but check this
pervasive.
out.
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it.
When they give us that inch, that bump stock ban, we will take a mile.
You've heard people say, you'll have to pry my guns from my cold dead hands. Okay.
We have introduced an assault weapons ban.
I'm talking about a ban on assault rifles.
If you listen real close, you can hear the people in power shaking.
It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Enough.
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 We say no more.
I'm the guy that originally wrote the assault weapons ban that became law. And
a gentleman just walked up to me in his picture line. He says, I have an AR-15 and I will turn this in if it means saving the lives of our kids. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
Do you think Trump is responsible for what happened? And I said, well, look, I mean, obviously he didn't pull the trigger, but he's certainly been tweeting out the ammunition.
I'm incredibly saddened, and it is very hard to think about this.
I'm tired of hearing people, all they have to offer is thoughts and prayers. In my faith, people say faith without works is dead. So we will find a way. But the reason we have a problem right now is we've let the corporate gun lobby frame this debate. It is time that we have bold actions and a bold agenda.
Over 90% of the American people think we have to get assault weapons off the street, period. And we have to get buybacks and get them out of their basements.
Everyone up here favors an assault weapon ban. Everyone up here favors magazine limitations, which, by the way, would have made a huge difference.
We can ban the weapons of war.
It's about ending the sales of assault weapons into our communities. Those weapons of war were designed to kill people as effectively and as efficiently as possible. They should belong on the battlefield and not in our communities.
But I also believe that a lot of gun owners would agree that AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not in the hands of criminals.
By the way, you can't own the following weapons, period. They cannot be sold anymore.
Like, if you're going to take people's guns away, wait till you get elected, then take the guns away. Don't tell them ahead of time.
Which, by the way, that's what people like me think you're going to do.
I would thank you for everything you've done for the InfoWar, but I know
So I just thought that was a really good expose of the Democrats admitting to what they were planning. We've known that they were on this trajectory, but now it just seems like the gloves are off, the curtain is pulled back.
Well, see, here's the thing: is there is a gun confiscation element coming from the right as well, and that is through executive order. And if you, for example, violate certain red flag criteria, like you say the wrong things, or, you know, again, the sound ordinance thing could easily become a bipartisan
it's a compromise
line of agreement and compromise, right?
Well,
so
the microphones are being set up,
right
in the telephone poles. That's not being stopped,
right?
You know,
on either
the cities are still passing ordinances and taking incremental steps to, you know, chip away at the culture of
completely
having the right to self-defense and so on. And that, you know, they've already won in a sense, because
the mass domestication.
Part of the discussion is around it's again incrementalism, right? Why do you need 30 rounds? The only way you would need that is if you're in war and you're trying to kill a bunch of people. And it's like, yeah, you might be in war and need to kill 30 people in self-defense.
Right.
It might be against a tyrannical government. Right. But they almost assume, the opponents assume that you have already accepted the notion that, well, guns are only for hunting anymore. It's like, so why do you need 30 rounds at a high rate if you're only killing one deer at a time? And it's like, I never said that's all I'm doing.
Right.
You know, and then it's like, but then the conversation is, okay, well, if you're going to be defending yourself against the government, they have a tank. Should you be allowed to have a tank? And it's like, I should be able to meet force with force.
Right.
And if that means a 30-round magazine, that means a 30-round magazine. If I need a tank,
right,
shouldn't I be able to have one?
Right.
If it's a tyrannical force and I'm in the right and they're in the wrong?
Well, increasingly, I mean, with the sophistication of 3D printing technology, which is yet another suppressed technology, we're probably going to be able to print our own tanks.
Right.
Before too long. I mean, it is that advanced. It's getting that advanced.
Yeah.
And after a while, if that becomes a decentralized form of industry and 3D printers can print other 3D printers, it's game over. Because then you can print any gun you want at any time. And it's over.
Yeah.
So I just think this whole aimless project of trying to stigmatize the mere existence of a physical object in someone's hands that they don't want is a fool's game.
Yeah.
That they're playing. It's an absolute ahistorical idiot fool's game.
Well, in the UK, they've banned knives for people under 18. Being able to buy knives. And it's like the knife crime since that happened has gone up.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And it's like, damn, how dumb do you have to get? It makes me wonder about chopsticks.
It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder, though. It's like, could they get away with it? If people are so easily cowed.
InfoWars is reporting that in Virginia they were talking about banning boxing, self-defense, jiu-jitsu. Like, what the fuck is that?
So that because increasingly even the enforcement class is feeling the ill effects of all this poisoning of the mass population, all the brainwashing of the media. They're becoming dumber. They're becoming less physically capable themselves.
Yeah.
So they want less and less resistance points.
Right.
So
they need to make their job as easy as possible.
They can make their job as easy as possible.
Right.
So they criminalize everything and anything that could possibly be seen as confrontational resistance. Right. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
Like anyone with, you know, room temperature IQ can just see it, unless they've been propagandized and introduced to this fear-based mentality around literally inanimate objects that have no will of their own that can serve a beneficial purpose. Imagine that.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
It's a concept that can be banned. It's already been invented.
Right.
So, I mean, you can try to ban
What criminal ever follows law? Like banning things and setting up laws only hurts law-abiding people.
But
especially when it comes to
a gun is just a term for a projectile that is forced out of a tube at a fast rate. Like you can make in your garage.
Yes,
if you know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So it's not preventing any sort of.
No, it just allows for less resistance.
Yeah,
amongst the population. So all the gangs.
But
and
if they get their drone swarms and their their AI surveillance systems and stuff,
they're going to render obsolete opposition to it because they're going to be able to like biometrically zoom in and see if you have a gun in your basement.
Zap it with a laser from a balloon platform.
It's unbelievable. and these are all our technologies that have been paid for with our stolen money.
Right.
But this is what people need to understand.
Right.
It's like it's not theirs.
Right.
It's not theirs.
So when are they going to start putting the lasers on the balloon gondolas and literally floating them over the cities and fighting crime that way?
Right.
That
judge, jury, executioner. Who needs a court system?
That's what I'm saying. It's all ties together.
All ties together.
All ties together. So number 19. The mainstream media collapse. This, in many ways, could be number one. I mean,
sure,
because so many of the problems engendered by all these other singularities are held up, forestalled, diverted, distracted by the damn. 3 companies or one company at the end of the day who controls all the media.
Right.
And this is really coming to a head, for better or for worse, because of the Golden Globes speech by Ricky Gervais. And I think people's disdain for they get it. People are getting it. Even the uninitiated are realizing that. I mean, the ratings of CNN, MSNBC, it's all in the tank. People are seeking alternative forms of media.
Well, and
the rise of YouTube isn't evidence of the dinosaur media dying. It seems like they're working together now, but that's only because that's only a temporary hangout. They're the trajectory is for the death.
Yeah.
The death of the mainstream media and people like Don Lemon and all that.
Well, all of them will have their little, Instagram feeds or something. They'll just the big tech companies are going to become the new mainstream media.
Right.
YouTube is already doing that.
Internet ghettos,
and they're facing the financial consequences because the content matter is what's forcing the ratings down.
Right.
The lack of insight is what's plummeting viewership. And you just export that content to another platform, it's still not going to do as well.
Right.
Because people are going to recognize, it's the same content.
I don't want to spend my
time doing it.
So let's watch just enjoy this. I want to talk about whether this is the big discussion was this planned? Did they approve this? Did he just go off script, etc.? But regardless of all that, it's just fun to. It is. I thought it was good. It was poignant.
Sure. I mean, just like other comedy bits that have come out in the past year, Dave Chappelle's stuff. It's pushing the envelope towards. Okay, you guys, we can't really just pretend like the cultural depravity in Hollywood is non-existent anymore.
Yeah, and the sort of promotion of this speech in the mainstream channels such as YouTube
inspired a desperate attempt to kind of like hold up a mirror and say, we know that we're bad, but still watch us.
Look at us take it on the chin. Yeah, give me a break. Y'all should be in fucking jail.
Yeah, but, exactly.
But it inspired me to go look at his other speeches, and they were also pretty harsh. I mean, he was talking about them being sexual deviants and this and that, but his comedy is a concentration of the cultural, male milieu of stuff that's out there. Epstein, he mentions Epstein because that's been memeified, that's been mainstream. I think to a large extent because of your articles, Xavier, on CNN and our reporting, but also just because it's just so ridiculous. I mean,
it's
everybody
unreal.
sees it for what it is. You know,
everyone sees it. I
I'm
mean,
being
there's
facetious,
a
but
massive research community that's following this. It's not going to die.
and they were following it before.
Yeah,
they were following it
absolutely.
way before with Pizzagate and Podesta and Tony Podesta and the Haitian situation with the Clinton Foundation.
Absolutely.
And the shit. I mean, this goes way back.
On
It goes
and
way
on
back
and
with
on.
Penn
I mean,
State.
The
and
Finders is just a small little sliver, and then it's all over the place.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's just enjoy some of Ricky Gervais.
Hello and welcome to the 77th Annual Golden Globe Awards, live from the Beverly Hilton Hotel here in Los Angeles. I'm Ricky Gervais. Thank you. You'll be pleased to know this is the last time I'm hosting these awards, so I don't care anymore. I'm joking. I never did. NBC clearly don't care either. 5th time. So, I mean, Kevin Hart was fired from the Oscars because of some offensive tweets. Hello? Lucky for me, the Hollywood Foreign Press can barely speak English, and they've no idea what Twitter is. So I got offered this gig by fax. So let's go out with a bang. Let's have a laugh at your expense, shall we? Remember, they're just jokes. We're all going to die soon, and there's no sequel. So, yeah, remember that. But you all look lovely, all dolled up. You came here in your limos. I came here in a limo tonight, and the license plate was made by Felicity Huffman. So, no, shush. It's her daughter I feel sorry for, okay? That must be the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to her. And her dad was in Wild Hogs. So, lots of big celebrities here tonight. I mean, legends, icons, yeah? Look, at this table alone, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro. But Baby Yoda. Oh, that's Joe Pesci, sorry. I love you, man. Don't have me whacked. But tonight isn't just about the people in front of the camera. In this room are some of the most important TV and film executives in the world. People from every background, but they all have one thing in common. They're all terrified of Ronan Farrow. He's coming for you. He's coming for you. Look, talking of all you perverts, it was a big year. It was a big year for paedophile movies. Surviving R. Kelly, Leaving Neverland, Two Popes. Shut up. Shut up. I don't care. I don't care. Many talented people of colour were snubbed in major categories. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. The Hollywood Foreign Press are all very, very racist. So, 5th time. So, we were going to do an in memoriam this year, but when I saw the list of people that had died, it wasn't diverse enough. It just, no. It was mostly white people, and I thought, nah, not on my watch. So, maybe next year. Let's see what happens. No one cares about movies anymore. No one goes to the cinema. No one really watches network TV. Everyone's watching Netflix. This show should just be me coming out going, well done, Netflix, you win everything. Good night. But no, we got to drag it out for 3 hours. You could binge watch the entire first season of Afterlife instead of watching this show. That's a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife dies of cancer, and it's still more fun than this, okay? Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end, he obviously didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up. I know he's your friend, but I don't care. You had to make your own way here in your own plane, didn't you? Right. But seriously, most films are awful, lazy, remakes, sequels. I've heard a rumour that there might be a sequel to Sophie's Choice. I mean, that'd just be Meryl Streep going, well, it's got to be this one then. all the best actors have jumped to Netflix and HBO, you know, and the actors who just do Hollywood movies now do fantasy adventure nonsense. They wear masks and capes and really tight costumes. Their job isn't acting anymore. It's going to the gym twice a day and taking steroids, really. Have we got an award for most ripped junkie? No. No point. We know he'd win that. Martin Scorsese, the greatest living director, made the news for his controversial comments about the Marvel franchise. He said they're not real cinema and they remind him of theme parks. I agree. Although I don't know what he's doing hanging around theme parks. He's not big enough to go on the rides, is he? It's tiny. Right. The Irishman was amazing. It was amazing. It was.
Let's see if you can...
A humiliation ritual